So, I never thought I'd be that guy. The one who starts checking his wife's stories for holes, who second guesses every little thing. But here I am. And let me tell you, this all started with something small. Just one little inconsistency. My name's Landon. Been married to Evelyn for 6 years. On the surface, we're that couple everyone sees as perfect. The ones who always post anniversary pictures with sappy captions. The ones people ask, how do you guys make it work so well? I always had an answer for that. Trust. Yeah, trust. I travel for work. A lot. It's not the easiest thing, but we always made it work. She stays busy with her own job, and we check in when we can. A text here, a call there. But last week, something just felt off. I was in Dallas for a project, scheduled to fly back Friday evening. But work wrapped up earlier than expected, so I figured, why not surprise my wife? I booked an earlier flight, didn't tell her. Thought it'd be cute. Thought she'd be happy. On the way back, I tried calling her. No answer. Okay, no big deal. She's at work. Probably busy. I texted. Nothing. Now, Evelyn's the type who always texts back, even if it's just a quick, busy, talk later. But this time, silence. So, I figured I'd call her office, just to see if she was stuck in meetings or something. I get the receptionist. Nice lady, knows me well. I ask, hey, is Evelyn around? Just wanted to check in before I head home. And then she says it. Oh, she actually left early today. Her assistant too. I think they had a work event or something. I felt my stomach drop. Work event. Evelyn told me she'd be at the office all day. No mention of anything else. And her assistant left too? Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I was overthinking it. But I couldn't shake that feeling, the one that creeps up when you know something isn't right. I drove home, trying to stay calm. But as soon as I stepped inside our house, the quiet was deafening. No signs of her. I checked the bedroom, bed made, no sign of her getting ready for anything special. Kitchen. The same. I called again. Voicemail. And that's when I knew. Something was wrong. Something wasn't adding up. And for the first time in our marriage, I started to wonder, was she lying to me? I sat on the couch, phone in my hand, just staring at the screen. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe she did have a work event and just forgot to mention it. But why wouldn't she answer my calls? At 9:20 p.m., my phone finally buzzed. It was her. I picked up immediately. Hey babe. Her voice was light, almost casual. Hey, I said, keeping my tone flat. Where have you been? There was a pause. A tiny, almost imperceptible hesitation before she said, I was at a work event. Why? I called your office earlier. They said you left early. No one mentioned a work event. Another pause. Then she let out this soft laugh, like I was being ridiculous. Yeah, it was a last-minute thing. Just a networking event. You know how these things are. I didn't say anything. Why are you asking so many questions? Also, I saw you checked out of your hotel early. Why didn't you tell me? I was worried. She was worried. I ignored that and just asked, where are you now? Driving home. Just tired. Long day. Something about her tone rubbed me the wrong way. It wasn't guilt, exactly. More like guarded. Like she was choosing her words carefully. Okay, I said finally. See you when you get home. Love you, she said quickly. I didn't say it back. After I hung up, I sat there in the dim light of our living room, my thoughts racing. I never used to question Evelyn. Never had a reason to. But tonight? I felt like a stranger listening to her voice. She was lying. I didn't know what she was lying about. But I was going to find out. Evelyn got home at exactly 10:03 p.m. I know because I was watching the clock. I didn't greet her at the door. Just sat on the couch, phone in my hand, pretending to be scrolling. Hey babe, she called out, voice sweet as ever. Like nothing was off. Like she wasn't avoiding me all day. I looked up. She stood in the doorway, dressed too nicely for a work event. A black blouse, fitted just right. Makeup still fresh. Hair curled like she actually tried today. She looked put together. Not like someone who'd had a long day at the office. Her eyes flicked toward me, gauging my reaction. "You okay?" she asked, slipping off her heels. "Yeah. Just tired." She walked over, leaned down, and kissed my cheek. It felt wrong. Forced. "What did you do today?" she asked, dropping her bag on the counter. "Not much. Got home early. Tried calling you." She hesitated for half a second. "Yeah, sorry. It was just one of those days." Barely looked at my phone. That was a lie. Evelyn was always on her phone. I studied her as she moved around the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of water. Something felt different. Off. Like she was aware of every movement she made, like she was performing casualness instead of actually being casual. "So where was this event?" I asked. The work event. Where was it?" Another hesitation. "Oh, downtown. At the Westwood Hotel." I just nodded. I didn't believe her. Not for a second. Because earlier, when I was waiting for her to call me back, I looked up Paul Reading. The guy she'd mentioned a few times before. He worked in the same industry, some consultant or whatever. Nothing special. But what was special? The address I found for him was nowhere near the Westwood Hotel. And I had a feeling. I knew exactly where Evelyn had been. I didn't sleep that night. Just lay there, staring at the ceiling while Evelyn slept beside me like nothing was wrong. Like she hadn't lied to my face. At 2 a.m., I got up, walked downstairs, and sat at the kitchen table. My mind was racing. I needed proof. Real proof. I started small. Opened her Instagram. Nothing weird there. Then I checked her messages. Just casual conversations with her friends. Then, I had a thought. I grabbed my laptop, logged into our phone account, and checked her call records. And there it was. Paul Reading's number. Several calls. One from yesterday morning. Another in the afternoon. And one at 7:48 p.m. Right in the middle of her so-called work event. My hands clenched into fists. I wasn't the kind of guy who just assumed things. I needed to know. I needed to be sure. So the next morning, after Evelyn left for work, I got in my car and drove to Paul Reading's house. And that's when I saw it. Parked neatly in his driveway. Evelyn's BMW. My stomach twisted into knots. My fingers tightened on the steering wheel. She was here. She was with him. And now, I had a decision to make. I sat in my car, staring at Evelyn's BMW in Paul Reading's driveway. My heart was pounding, but my mind was eerily calm. Like I had already known. Like I had been waiting for this moment. I should have stormed up to the door. Should have knocked, made a scene. But instead, I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, trying to decide my next move. And then, the front door opened. Evelyn stepped out. She wasn't in a rush. Wasn't sneaking. Just casually walking down the porch steps like she belonged there. Like she'd done this 100 times before. Paul followed her out. Tall. Smug-looking. The kind of guy who thought he was untouchable. He said something, and she laughed. That soft, familiar laugh I used to hear all the time. The laugh that used to be mine. I felt my pulse in my throat. She turned toward her car, and for a second, I thought she might see me. But she didn't. She just unlocked the door, slid inside, and drove off like it was just another morning. Like she wasn't walking out of another man's house. I gripped my keys so hard my knuckles turned white. I could follow her. Confront her right now. But something inside me told me to wait. This wasn't just about catching her in a lie anymore. This was about making sure she never saw it coming. And I was going to make damn sure of that. I didn't follow Evelyn. Not yet. I sat there, watching Paul reading lean against his doorway like he didn't have a care in the world. Like sleeping with another man's wife wasn't even a thing to him. I wanted to hit him. Wanted to march up those steps and put him on the ground. But that would be too easy. Too predictable. No, I wanted something better. So I waited. Paul went back inside, probably thinking his morning was going just fine. I made a mental note of his house. Small, suburban, nothing special. A place where secrets probably felt safe. But secrets don't stay buried forever. The investigation begins. When I got home, Evelyn was already there, standing in the kitchen like nothing had happened. "Hey babe," she said, smiling as she poured herself coffee. "How was your morning?" I forced myself to look at her. At the woman who had just walked out of another man's house. "Fine," I said, keeping my voice even. She didn't even flinch. Didn't look guilty. That was the part that really got me. She sat at the table, scrolling through her phone like she hadn't just blown up our entire marriage. "So, I was thinking," she started, "maybe we should take a trip soon. Just the two of us. We haven't had time to really relax, you know." A trip. She wanted to go on vacation with me? I clenched my jaw. "Yeah," I said, nodding. "That sounds nice." She smiled. And right there, I made my decision. I wasn't just going to catch her. I was going to let her dig her own grave first. The setup. That night, after Evelyn went to bed, I got to work. First, I went through her texts. Nothing suspicious. She was smart about that. But I already had something better. The call logs. I wrote Paul Reading's number down. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator. I found one online, someone with good reviews, and sent a message. "I need confirmation of an affair. I have a number and an address. How fast can you get me proof?" Within an hour, I got a response. "Give me a week. If she's cheating, we'll have it on camera." I stared at that message for a long time. A week. 1 week, and I'd have everything I needed. I looked over at Evelyn, sleeping peacefully in our bed. She had no idea. She thought she was getting away with it. But she had no idea what was coming. The hardest part? Acting normal. Pretending like I didn't know. Like I wasn't counting down the days until the truth would be laid out in front of me, undeniable and ugly. I kept my routine the same. Woke up, kissed Evelyn on the forehead, made coffee, went to work. I even let myself be affectionate, held her waist in the kitchen, brushed my fingers through her hair when she sat beside me on the couch. I hated every second of it. But I wasn't going to let her suspect a damn thing. And she didn't. If anything, she looked relieved. Like my questions from the other night were just a passing moment of paranoia. Like she was safe. She wasn't. The signs were everywhere. Now that I knew, it was impossible not to see it. She was on her phone a little too much, smiling at messages she never shared. She started going to yoga on Sundays, even though she'd never once mentioned it before. And the biggest one? She started being too nice. Rubbing my shoulders. Telling me how much she loved me. Talking about our future. I wondered if it was guilt. If some part of her actually felt bad about what she was doing. Not that it mattered. She could cry all she wanted once this was over. The first report. On the 4th day, the PI sent me a message. "Got something. Sending photos soon." My heart was pounding when I opened the email. And there it was. A picture of Evelyn at a restaurant. Across from Paul. Leaning in close. Smiling. Another one of them leaving together. His hand on the small of her back. And the last one? Her getting into his car. I swallowed hard, staring at the images. I had my proof. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. I wanted more. I wanted something she couldn't talk her way out of. So I messaged the PI back. "Keep going. I want to know everything. The next step." That night, I lay in bed beside Evelyn, listening to her breathing. She had no idea her little secret was already mine. And soon. She'd have no choice but to face it. I just had to decide how I was going to break her. The pictures sat in my inbox like a ticking bomb. Every time I looked at Evelyn, I felt the weight of them. I knew. I had proof. But the game wasn't over yet. I needed to time this perfectly. So I did what I had to do. I played the role of the devoted husband. And Evelyn? She kept up her act, too. "Babe, do you want me to pick up anything from the store?" she asked one morning, sipping her coffee like nothing in the world was wrong. "Nah, I'm good," I said, forcing a smile. "Maybe some more of that tea you like?" Her eyes softened. "You always think about me." "Yeah. I was thinking about her, all right. Thinking about how she was sneaking around behind my back." The next piece of the puzzle. On the 6th day, the PI sent me a new update. "She's spending the night with him." I froze. Night. I checked the text messages Evelyn had sent me earlier. "Work dinner. Running late. Don't wait up, love you." I gritted my teeth so hard my jaw ached. I stared at the new set of pictures. Evelyn and Paul at his house. Walking inside. No hesitation. No looking over her shoulder. Like she belonged there. The timestamp? 9:46 p.m. I checked my call log. At 9:50, she had texted me about her fake work dinner. 4 minutes after she walked into another man's house. I set my phone down carefully, my fingers shaking. This was it. This was all I needed. The first slip-up. The next morning, Evelyn came home looking too put together. Freshly showered. Hair perfect. Like she hadn't just cheated on her husband. "Morning, babe," she said, kissing my cheek. "Sorry I got in so late. I crashed at Sarah's after dinner. I had too much wine to drive." I forced a chuckle. "Yeah. What did you guys eat?" She blinked, just for a second. Italian. Pasta place downtown." I smiled. "Sounds good. Maybe we can go there this weekend." Another pause. "Oh, yeah. I'll have to ask Sarah what it was called." She didn't even have the name of the restaurant she supposedly ate at. She was slipping. And she didn't even realize it. The calm before the storm. That night, I lay beside her, staring at the ceiling. This was going to end soon. But I wasn't going to just confront her. No. I was going to make sure she felt every second of this. And when it was over, she wouldn't just lose me. She'd lose everything. I had everything I needed. The pictures. The lies. The exact moment she walked into another man's house while texting me that she was at dinner. Now, it was time to make her fall into her own mess. But I wasn't just going to confront her. That would be too easy. Too quick. I wanted her to squirm. To realize just how much she had destroyed before she even knew she was caught. So I started setting the pieces in place. The first move. A perfect husband. The next morning, I woke up before Evelyn. Made her coffee. Kissed her on the forehead when she walked into the kitchen, acting like the loving husband she thought I was. "Morning, beautiful," I said. She smiled, completely unaware. "You're up early. Wanted to surprise you. Thought we could do something special tonight. Dinner, maybe." Her eyes flickered, just for a second. That tiny hesitation that told me she was already coming up with an excuse. "Oh, tonight? I think I might have to work late. Big project coming up." I nodded. "Of course." "That's okay," I said, kissing her cheek. "Maybe tomorrow then." She smiled again, relieved that I wasn't suspicious. But I saw right through her. She had no idea she was walking straight into my trap. The second move. A little reminder. That afternoon, I sent Evelyn a text. "Hey babe. I was thinking about how much I love you today. Can't wait to see you tonight. Hope work isn't too stressful. Red heart. Sweet. Simple. Completely normal. And a test." She replied half an hour later. "Evelyn, I love you too. Work is insane today, ugh. Can't wait to be home with you." Home with me? That was funny, considering my PI had already texted me a picture of her pulling into Paul's driveway, lying straight to my face. Again. But that was fine. Because tonight, I was going to make her feel it. The third move, the kill shot. I made sure I got home before her. Set everything up. The lights dimmed. A bottle of wine on the table. 2 plates. 2 candles. A perfect, romantic dinner. And on the couch, an envelope. Inside, every single picture of her and Paul. Every call log. Every lie. Printed out in black and white. Then I sat back and waited. The moment of truth. At 10:12 p.m., Evelyn walked through the door. She looked tired, but not like someone who had been working. Like someone who had spent the last few hours doing something she wasn't supposed to be doing. "Oh wow," she said, spotting the dinner table. "What's all this?" I smiled. "Come. Steady. Just wanted to do something special," I said. "Go ahead and pour yourself some wine. I left something for you on the couch." She blinked. Then walked over. I watched her pick up the envelope. Watched her face change. The color drained from her cheeks as she flipped through the photos. One by one. She swallowed. Hands shaking. Then, finally, she looked up at me. Pure panic in her eyes. "Landon. I can explain." I leaned forward. "No, Evelyn," I said, my voice dead cold. "You can't." Evelyn just stood there, frozen. The envelope trembled in her hands, the pictures spilling onto the floor. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. For the first time, she had nothing to say. I let the silence drag. Let her feel it. Then I leaned back in my chair, tilting my wine glass in my hand. "Come. In control. Go on," I said. "Explain." She blinked rapidly, like her brain was scrambling to find a way out. I don't know what this looks like, but..." "Oh, you don't." I cut in. "Because it looks pretty clear to me. You left work. You went to his house. You spent the night there." Her lip quivered. "It's not what you think," she whispered. I let out a short, cold laugh. "Then tell me, Evelyn. What exactly was it?" She licked her lips, eyes darting around like she was searching for an escape. There was none. "It's complicated," she tried. I slammed my glass down on the table, making her jump. "No. Evelyn. It's simple." I stood up slowly, locking eyes with her. "You cheated. You lied. And now, you're caught." She shook her head, stepping toward me. Pathetic. Desperate. "Landon, please, I swear, it was never supposed to be like this. I love you." I held up a hand, stopping her in her tracks. "You don't get to say that to me." Her face twisted, tears welling in her eyes. Now she wanted to cry. I took a slow breath, shaking my head. "You threw away everything we had. For what?" "Him." I scoffed, picking up one of the photos and holding it up. "Was it worth it? Was he worth it?" She wiped at her tears, shaking her head furiously. "No. No, Landon, please, I swear. I was stupid, Yeah, I said, my voice cold. "You were." She reached out like she wanted to touch me, but I stepped back. The movement made her crumble. "Landon, please don't do this. We can fix this. We can go to therapy, we can..." I let out another bitter laugh. "Therapy? You want therapy? How about you therapize your way out of Paul's bed?" She sobbed, hands covering her face. I should have felt something. Sadness. Anger. Even satisfaction. But all I felt was nothing. I was done. And she was finally realizing it. Evelyn was breaking down right in front of me, but I just stood there, watching. "Landon, please," she choked out, her hands shaking. "We can talk about this." I tilted my head. "Talk," I said, stepping closer. "You had plenty of time to talk, Evelyn. You had time to tell me the truth. But instead..." I pointed at the pictures on the floor. "You did this. She shook her head furiously, like she could erase everything if she just denied it hard enough. It wasn't serious, she blurted out. It was a mistake. A huge mistake. I raised an eyebrow. A mistake. I echoed. Was it a mistake when you texted me from his house? Was it a mistake when you told me you were working late while you were in his bed? She flinched. It was never supposed to go this far, she whispered. I got caught up. I was confused. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Confused? I scoffed. Tell me, Evelyn, were you confused when you spread your legs for him? Her face crumpled like I had slapped her. Landon, she gasped. What? Too much. I leaned in, voice low. Too harsh? Because that's exactly what you did, isn't it? You weren't confused. You were reckless. Selfish. And now, you're just sorry you got caught. She shook her head again, tears spilling freely down her face. No, I swear. I love you. I never loved him, Oh, so you just cheat on people you love? I snapped. She sobbed harder. It was never about love. It was stupid. It didn't mean anything. I clenched my jaw. It meant something to me, Evelyn. That shut her up. For the first time, she actually looked at me. Not with excuses, not with desperation. Just raw, wide-eyed fear. She knew. She knew she had really lost me. I took a slow breath, then straightened up. Pack a bag, I said, my voice calm now. She blinked. What? You heard me. I stepped back. You're leaving. Her face went ghostly white. No, Landon, please, just pack a bag. My voice was stone. Unmoving. Where am I supposed to go? She whispered. I shrugged. Maybe Paul can take you in. Her breath hitched. You don't mean that. Oh, I do. I crossed my arms. Because I'm not sleeping under the same roof as a liar and a cheater. So unless you want me to start throwing your clothes onto the lawn, I'd start packing. She just stood there, trembling. And I just stood there waiting. Because this was her new reality. And she had no one to blame but herself. Evelyn didn't move. She just stood there, frozen, like she couldn't believe what was happening. Like if she stayed still long enough, she could somehow rewind time and undo it all. Too bad for her. This wasn't a dream. This was real. Landon, please, she whispered, stepping toward me. Don't do this. We can fix this. We can. I held up a hand. Stop. She flinched like I had struck her. You don't get to beg now, Evelyn, I said, my voice sharp. You had every chance to be honest. Every chance to walk away before you ruined everything. But you chose this. You chose him. She shook her head, desperate. No, I chose you. I never wanted to lose you. I laughed. Actually laughed. You chose me? I gestured to the photos still scattered across the floor. Is that what choosing me looks like? She covered her face, sobbing into her hands. It didn't mean anything. It was just. Stop saying that, I snapped, stepping closer. Because it sure as hell meant something when you were sneaking off to his house. It meant something when you were lying to my face. You don't get to downplay it now just because you're scared. She dropped her hands, her mascara smudged, her face red and blotchy. I'm scared because I love you, Landon, she said, voice breaking. I shook my head. No, you're scared because you got caught. Silence. That hit her. Her breath shuddered, and she wiped at her eyes like a little kid trying to hold back tears. Where am I supposed to go? She whispered. I shrugged. That's not my problem. Her lip trembled. You really want me to leave? Evelyn, I said slowly, locking eyes with her. If you don't pack, I'll do it for you. And I promise, you won't like how I do it. She let out a broken little sob, then turned and ran upstairs. I exhaled, running a hand through my hair, trying to process everything. The woman I had spent 6 years with, the woman I had trusted more than anything, was upstairs packing her things because she had destroyed our marriage with her own hands. And I didn't feel sorry for her. Not even a little. I stood in the living room, listening to the sounds above me. Dresser drawers opening and slamming shut. Footsteps pacing. Quiet. Muffled sobs. Evelyn was falling apart upstairs. And for the first time in weeks, I felt nothing. Not anger. Not sadness. Just done. After about 10 minutes, she came back down the stairs, dragging a half-zipped suitcase behind her. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold onto it. She stopped at the bottom step, her eyes pleading with me. "Landon, are you really making me leave?" she asked, her voice small. I crossed my arms. "Do you see another option?" Her breath hitched. She was still hoping I'd change my mind. Not a chance. She swallowed hard and nodded, gripping the handle of her suitcase tighter. "I don't know where to go," she whispered. I shrugged. "Paul's house seems like a good start." Her face twisted in pain. "Good." "I don't want him," she choked out. "I want you." I let out a bitter laugh. "Yeah. You should have thought about that before you crawled into his bed." She flinched, tears spilling down her cheeks. I walked over to the front door and pulled it open. "Time to go." She just stood there, staring at me, waiting for me to break. Waiting for me to stop her. But I didn't. Because she wasn't my wife anymore. She was just a stranger who had made her choice. And now, she had to live with it. Evelyn didn't move. She just stood there, gripping the handle of her suitcase so tightly her knuckles turned white. "Landon," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Please. Can't we just talk? One more time?" I shook my head. "We're past talking, Evelyn." She let out a shaky breath. "But I love you," she said desperately. "I swear, I never wanted this to happen. It was a mistake. A terrible, stupid mistake." I clenched my jaw. "Yeah. Well, mistakes have consequences." She sucked in a breath like I had punched her. "Can't we fix this?" she begged. "Please, Landon, I'll do anything." I just stared at her. "If you really loved me, you wouldn't have done this." Her face crumbled. For a moment, I saw realization hit her. The moment she finally understood that there was no coming back from this. "I'm sorry," she whispered. But sorry didn't mean anything anymore. I reached for the doorknob and held the door open wider. "Goodbye, Evelyn." Her breath hitched. Her eyes searched mine one last time. Begging, pleading, hoping. But she found nothing. So she swallowed back her sobs, tightened her grip on her suitcase, and stepped outside. I watched as she walked to her car, her shoulders shaking. She hesitated before opening the door, like she was waiting for me to call her back. I didn't. And finally, she got in, started the engine, and drove away. I stood in the doorway for a long time, staring at the empty street. Then I stepped back inside. And for the first time in weeks, I let out a deep breath. Because it was over. And she was never coming back. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I stood in the middle of the living room, staring at the space where Evelyn had just been. Just days ago, I would have given anything to keep her here. To pretend everything was okay. To believe her lies. But now, all I felt was relief. I walked over to the table where the photos still lay scattered. Her betrayal, frozen in time. I picked them up, stacked them neatly, and dropped them into the trash. Not because I wanted to forget, but because I didn't need the proof anymore. I knew what she had done, and that was enough. The first few days. She tried calling. Of course she did. First, it was, "Landon, please, just talk to me." Then it was, "I can't believe you're doing this to me." And finally, silence. I blocked her number. Blocked her on everything. And once the calls stopped, I felt like I could finally breathe again. The hardest part? The moments in between. When I woke up and instinctively reached for her. When I walked past her side of the closet, now half empty. When I cooked dinner and caught myself setting out 2 plates instead of 1. 6 years of habit doesn't break overnight. But every day it got easier. And then came Paul. One afternoon, a week later, I got a text from an unknown number. Paul. We need to talk. I almost laughed. Talk. The man who slept with my wife wanted to have a conversation? I ignored him. 2 hours later, another text. She's not doing well. Just thought you should know. I stared at my phone for a long moment. Then I deleted the message. She wasn't my problem anymore. The final goodbye. A month passed. And then, one day, I ran into Evelyn. I was at a cafe, just grabbing a coffee. And when I turned around, there she was. She looked different. Tired. Thinner. Like she hadn't been sleeping. For a second, we just stared at each other. Then she gave me this small, broken smile and whispered, "Hey." I just nodded. Didn't say a word. She swallowed. I wanted to say I miss you. I exhaled slowly. I don't miss you. Her breath hitched. She looked down, like she wanted to say more. But she didn't. And finally, she just whispered, "Goodbye, Landon." I watched as she turned and walked away. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. Or sadness. Just peace. Because I was free. And she was just a memory.